Alright, yes, you've read the title correctly. 99% of men practice semen retention wrong. Now, what I mean by that, first of all, it's to grab your attention. It's to play on your psychology. Oh, 99% do it wrong. Am I part of the 1%? Like, I know it's like a stupid title and it's just supposed to grab your attention, but for a reason, because I have a message I want to share with you. First of all, there is still an element of truth to it, though. We realize that the closer you want to get to truth, the less people partake in it. So, for example, even if we talk about semen retention, there is a reason that you might have realized this is a good practice, this is how I should be living as a man. But yet you feel resistance, not only from some people, but from the majority of the world, right? Because the world is in a state of darkness. The world thinks if you, as a man, watch another man have sex online and you touch yourself, that this is totally normal and doesn't literally destroy your hormones, soul, and spirit. So there is a certain level of truth to that, in the sense that, for example, the Bible would say, broad is the way that leads to destruction, and narrow is the gate that leads to heaven. Meaning, most people, the majority, you could call it the mainstream, they are walking towards destruction or what is less ideal. And you realize this, right? Semen retention is something that is not a lot of people are aware of or consciously think about, and even less people actively strive for it, and even less people actively strive for it over months and years. Usually only those people who really do have some type of calling. But the thing is, it has become more mainstream the past few years, and what that by definition does is, the more mainstream something becomes, if you want to sell it to people, if you want to make it interesting to people, you need to appeal to the people. And so the more people you have where you want to sell something to, the more you need to stoop it down to the level. Because once again, notice the way things are working. It is only a few that are truly close to truth, while the majority is usually away. At least that's very much so true in today's day and age, and I would argue always been the case, because there's always very few saints or very few spiritual masters or whatever you want to call them. And by the way, you can watch this even if you're not a Christian. I don't necessarily need to convince you of my religion or my way or anything. The truth will speak for itself at the end of the day. I'm just somebody who follows Christ, so I will use a few biblical examples here and there. But the thing is, it will apply with a lot of people as well. So you will get the connections I'm making. The point is, I want to do, or I want to undo some of the corruption that I see perpetrated, because it has become more mainstream. Why? Because, well, the closer you are to truth, the better it is. The closer you get to truth, the better your life will be. So that's why we're all aiming for truth. That's why we're all aiming at something. We want to somehow get to a better place. And at the core of that is God, or your purpose, or the goal, or truth, or life, or heaven, or whichever word you want to ascribe to it. So the first and obvious frame of mind that needs to change is, and obviously that's the whole appeal to the masses, because I understand we're already in a subset of the majority, but even of that subset, you should wanna become not part of the majority. Because what does the majority think? How does the majority operate when they think about semen retention? The majority's thought, or even subconscious thought, is, I do this so I get, I do this so I become, I do this so I receive. And why do they do that? Well, because there's a big element of truth to it. But, and this is the big but, it is actually a very self-destructive mindset. And I want to elaborate on this mindset a little bit. You see, a lot of people, they can't wait for female attraction, right? This is something you see all over the place. Oh, female attraction, females will be more attracted to you, and of course we're males, and this will play on your male biology, etc. This will be very appealing to you, and so it's like subconsciously in the back of your mind, oh, it will increase female attraction, this and that. It becomes appealing. Another thing is, oh, I will have so much energy, I will have so much drive, I will need less sleep, and I will become attractive and charismatic and magnetic and all of these things. And while there's an element of truth to that, in a big way, it is also actually wrong and the opposite. And you might be sitting there, what do you mean it's the opposite? I am getting more charismatic, I am receiving more female attraction, I am becoming more or progressing faster, or whatever you want to say. Yes, but I want to ask you this. I want to shift your mindset a little bit. If you imagine Jesus Christ, and if you're not a Christian, you can imagine whatever guru you want to follow, or whatever enlightened master you want to follow. and you think about, let's just say, female attraction. Do you think Jesus Christ was a beacon of sex appeal? Think about it. What would be the ideal person? What would be the goal worth striving for, or the ultimate goal we should all aim at? And again, doesn't matter which teaching. Look at your enlightened masters or whatever. None of them are quote unquote beacons of sex appeal. Because what I mean, beacon of sex appeal? Well, this is something you notice in the beginning, and I'll explain to you why that is that you will realize that more women, and also more promiscuous women, will give you more sexual attraction or attention. But then when you look at your spiritual teachers of any given teaching, you realize these guys are not really the people who receive sexual attention or attraction from the majority of women. Not even a minority, it's very, very few, right? And why is that? Well, for example, Jesus was humble. He wasn't prideful. He wasn't arrogant, right? Why are women, or the female biology is somewhat into arrogancy or pride? Well, because it could signal competence, right? Biologically speaking, her biology would want a competent male to ensure survival, right? Or Jesus, for example, he was a servant for other men. A woman's biology is not turned on when she sees a man going on his knees to clean the feet of another man and put sandals on him. If anything, she's going to look to the guy who has his sandals being put on by the other man, right? The point is, he had no social status. And Jesus also didn't have any physical beauty. Yet he was the ideal. Yet he was the master. Yet he was the one who was on semen retention for his whole life. Right? The guy had 33 years of semen retention. So why isn't he the ultimate beacon of sex appeal? When you're already feeling this good after a week, or after 30 days, or after 2 months, and you're attracting all these women, why isn't he even more attractive? Why isn't he getting all that sexual attention? What has changed? And this is the core principle, or the core thing I want to get to. And the point is this: semen retention is not the goal, it is a catalyst. But it is a catalyst for whatever you choose it to be. I want to put it like this: retention gives you power. This is undeniable. It gives you energy. It gives you, in some teachings, you can classify this as, ojas, chi, or prana. Some people say life source. Other people just say spirit, whatever. I don't really care. But somehow this is undoubtedly, you receive some type of energy, some type of vigor, even if it is literally just aligning and becoming what you were supposed to be. And even if it isn't you becoming superhuman, you just undo the corruption within you because you've been brought up in a corrupted society. Somehow it's better. Somehow you're more equipped to deal with things. And because that is the foundational claim or truth, from that point on, you can venture out into two ways. So here's what happens. You have two sides within you, flesh and spirit. And what it is it is a temptation, or it is a refinement. And this might sound counterintuitive, but it is. And with every temptation, there is an ability to gain and there is an ability to lose, because the temptation at its core is power, in the sense that it is a decision. But just because it comes from a certain standpoint of power doesn't mean it will stay in power. So I'll give you an example. A lot of men, they want a lot of sex with women. And so when they see a guy and he is able to have a lot of sex with women, they perceive this as power, right? A lot of men or women, they want a lot of money. When you see a person with a lot of money, you assume, well, that is power, right? Because you have what I want. You have what everybody wants, right? That must be power. It's worth something. But the problem is this, is that the temptation in of itself is power. But you can use the power up for your own benefit, or you can keep it, right? And we can look at retention, right? You can fall back into the habit, you can masturbate, and then you will lose it because you have given into the temptation, or you can keep it, and then you can keep going. But what do you want to keep going for? Do you want to keep going to receive a bigger temptation? Are you resisting the masturbation so you can have sex with a woman? Or are you resisting this so you can receive this? And at which point do you want to cash in? The point is, if you have an attitude of I want to cash in, it doesn't matter how far you go. It doesn't matter how well you do. You can be Genghis Khan himself, sleeping with 800 women a month. It doesn't matter. Because you're still cashing in. And because you cash in, you never get to break through. You never get to actually use it as a catalyst for true spiritual growth. Because what is happening on a spiritual level is this: the enemy is tempting you. Why? Well, because there's something there. If you're a drained low life, in chains, eating unhealthy, a slave to addictions, stuck in a 9 to 5, a slave to the system, etc., on every single level, all you care about is mainstream sports, and you believe everything in the news, and you put whatever in your arm they say, and you have no type of discernment, and you don't ever contemplate if your global leaders are maybe evil, or what the point of life is, or if there's morality, or if there's truth, or you just are in an animalistic state. You think about the now, you waste all your money, you're forced into the 9 to 5 because you're just stuck in the system, and you're probably miserable and depressed, etc. If you're not that, if you have some type of something there, that's when you become attractive to the enemy. Because what that means is the enemy realizes, well, that power, that ability to do something, to move, to attain things, is also the key to escaping the prison. Because you can use this energy to develop yourself. You can use this energy to spiritually grow, to escape your addictions, to escape your spiritual unseen enslavements, right? And this is where the enemy will come. And he will tempt you with things. He will offer you things, right? And what did he offer Jesus Christ? He offered him the whole world. He offered him the worship of all people. Satan's core desire is the worship of all people. Yet when confronted with Christ, he would immediately give it all to Christ, because he realizes, well, if only Christ worships me, that is greater than all people. And so, because you're not Christ, Satan is not going to offer you the world. He's just going to offer you a piece of it. And that might look like a woman staring at you. It might look like you getting a job promotion, and then you hang around people who are very self-obsessed and narcissistically inclined, who are very prideful and will drag you into it, and you need to play along and go along with them so you can be best buddies with them and receive the monetary benefit, but they do things that are destructive for the soul, right? It's things such as these where the enemy will come. And what is the enemy doing? Well, the enemy sees the power. Because again, it is not your power, it is God's power. And he is offering you, well, do you want to go to God, or don't you want to cash in? Don't you want to return? One more time. Look, you've never done that one, right? Don't you want to cash in? First it's a candy, then it's a cake. At the end, he offers you the whole damn bakery. But the point is, if you're still cashing in, you're going back. You are just tempting the enemy. It's like, no, I'm not a slave. I'm not a slave. Okay, you got me. I'm not a slave. I'm not a slave. Okay, you got me. And for Satan, he's willing to play that game. He's willing to have you live in the delusion and think that semen retention is going to give me female attraction, and I'm so powerful and magnetic, and I don't even need to sleep anymore, and I'm this and I'm that. And it's like, yeah, you're super spiritual, but just come every once in a while, cash it in. But because what does cashing in do? You lose the power, right? How do you get to keep the power? Well, look at the ones who've done it. Let's look at Christ. He is not sexually attractive. Where did he stop being sexually attractive? Why is he not even more? Because he has used it as a catalyst for spiritual growth. And that's what it really is. It is nothing but a tool. But you can use a tool for whatever you like. You can use a tool to swim in your illusions and think you're becoming more spiritual when you're just cashing it in for greater things, and you're still purely motivated by the self and what you can become and what you can amass, etc. Or you can truly keep going and become less. Because in becoming less, you get to keep the power. Because let me tell you something, you yourself, you are selfish. And that's why whatever you will do is you will use the power. If I have money, I'm going to spend it. That's how the self works in a spiritual sense, because it is currency in some degree. That's why you can exchange it, right? And only the Spirit of God is void of any selfishness or ego, and the Spirit of God is also within you, right? This is why you have the opposing desires. This is the 101 of spiritual warfare. I'm going to assume you're already there. That's why I know I'm tempted or I cannot do it, right? These are two sides within you, waging war. Addiction or break free of the addiction. Cheat on my partner or stay loyal. Cheat on my diet, don't cheat on my diet. Procrastinate, do the work. These are two sides within you, waging war for your soul. Metaphorically, Satan and God. And so when you remain in the self, you will cash out. At some point, the self is overwhelmed. And here's the link you got to make. The bigger the self, the earlier it is overwhelmed. The stronger your desire to spend money and to cash in, the faster you're going to cash in. And you might hold yourself back, you might restrain yourself, but you're only doing it because in the back of your mind is, okay, I get to cash in, I get to cash in later, I'm going to get more, I'm going to get this, I'm going to get that. This is the wrong attitude. Because for as long as you have this subconscious belief, this subconscious attitude, it doesn't matter how far you go. It's like you're a yo-yo. It doesn't matter how far you go, as long as you're a yo-yo, you're on the string, you're gonna come back. Oh, this time you want to go really far, cool, but you're gonna come all the way back once you've touched however far you wanted to go, right? And so this is why the way to keep the power is to be less in the self, and this is what the real spiritual path is even about. Semen retention or practices such as these, they're only the catalyst or the ability. It is potential, but nothing has been realized. You got to understand, from a spiritual sense, you can have all the women, you can have all the money, you can have all the worldly riches, all the status. Again, you can be Genghis Khan himself. On your deathbed, it's not going to matter. In your spirit, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you had 700 women or two. It doesn't matter if you're still a virgin at 24 or you had sex with 700 women by the time you're in your early 20s. It doesn't matter in that sense. If your mindset, if your spirit, or if your self is in control and your mindset is the same, it doesn't matter which of these two people you are. It doesn't matter how far you travel. You're still in the jail. It doesn't matter how far you reach. You're always going to come back. And this is why a lot of people don't understand what retention is. Retention is not the means of attaining these things. Retention is a potential. It is a potential for growth, but it does not have to be growth. A lot of people sacrifice. A lot of people are willing to sacrifice, but they do it selfishly. They want to gain more things. I can give you a perfect example. Witches fast. Fasting is one of these spiritual practices that it doesn't matter which teaching, which way. Everybody's like, oh yeah, that gets you closer to God. But the witches who sacrifice children, who make rituals, who put curses on you to gain worldly power, they fast themselves. Think about it. They do the spiritual practices themselves. Witches also often practice celibacy. Why? Because they care about the self. They care about the power. They want to cash in. So they're storing up so they can cash in. It is the same principle. And so the only way you can keep the power is by becoming less, because only a humble child can keep the power, right? For example, Christ says, only those who are like children will enter the kingdom of heaven. What is at the end of the potential you hold? The same thing that is at the end of your goal. It is truth. It is heaven. Right? And so when Christ says only those who are like children will enter the kingdom of heaven, not only is he drawing a parallel to himself, but he's also drawing a parallel to you. If you want to keep it, if you want to turn the potential into a reality and not cash in, but have it be persistent, then you need to become as child, or else you can't handle it. You can't handle it. The self is going to want to cash in. And the enemy is going to offer you things. And if you resist, he's going to give you a discount. He's going to give you a 2-for-1. He's going to tell you all types of things. And the root problem is pride. And so it doesn't matter how many practices you do. If you're not fixing the root problem, you can be on retention for your whole damn life for all I care about. Or you can release once a month or once a year. If your attitude is cashing in, you can never release. Never. And you can just simply use it for worldly gain. You want to get rich, you want to get powerful, you want to have status. You can do that, but it doesn't get you anywhere. And of course, this is super appealing. It's like, oh, I can actually do that? Yes and no. But in principle, yeah. But you need to contain enough potential in order for the enemy to offer you something on that same level. Well, he offers you nothing, emptiness and death, but something appearing equally as valuable, right? Because Satan only works with appearance, not with being or essence. So again, retention gives you power, it gives you potential, but the potential is only truly exchanged for what is valuable or actually kept within you if you get trained by the potential, if you get trained by the temptation, if you, despite the things you become, despite the maturity you enter, despite the options that open up and the attraction that you receive and the doors that open, if despite that you always come back to what you were in the beginning. Because in the beginning you were humble, you had nothing, it was easy. But now you're having all these things, and now it's hard to get back to that place. And only in that place can you stay on the path. And only in that state of being can you retain the potentiality within you. And that's why you need to be very careful about what your motives are. For me, I have stopped receiving a lot of female attraction because I don't walk around with a sense of pride, or I'm better, or I have so much energy, or I must stare at every woman because now I'm not suffering from crippling social anxiety and I'm unable to look into a woman's eyes. Like, I used to be like that. When I was a teenager, I was masturbating. I would be scared. Oh, pretty girl, pretty woman. Oh, it's scary. But nowadays it's not. But it's not like I need to now abuse that, or because then you're still coming from that same point of desire of the self. When you stop playing a role, you stop playing games, when you have the strength and the humility to be the child, to be the one who washes the feet of another man. Even if a woman's watching and you realize, oh, I'm not really attractive right now, you got to be okay with that. That's what spiritual growth truly is. It is letting go of these lower level attachments and biological impulses. That's how you will align with heaven. And the more you align with heaven, the more people are going to cringe at you. You're going to be weird. You're not going to match. Interactions are going to be awkward because it's energetically or spiritually. There's no recognition. There's no match. The things you want to talk about, they don't care. The things they want to talk about, you want to run away from. And so you become unattractive. And not only unattractive to people, but also to women. They will stop being attracted to you once you stop playing the game. Once you stop trying to cash in. Once you use it as a catalyst, you realize I'm nothing but a humble child. I'm nothing. And you just do your thing and you don't walk around a certain way and in the back. This is all degenerate. You're just cashing in. You're going to lose it all because you're nothing. You got to realize that. This is the main problem. The main problem is everybody goes into it. Oh, in this many days I get this, I get that, and I become this, and then I will receive. That's why you get nowhere. That's why it appears as if you're getting somewhere, because you're constantly being tempted to a higher and higher degree, but you're not actually getting anywhere. And if you're somewhere on the path or towards the breakthrough, you will realize that on that journey, you did exactly that. You got tempted, and then the temptation was greater, and then the temptation was greater, and then you fell, but next time you were a little bit stronger, then you fell, next time was a little bit stronger. Why is this happening? Because the self is gradually decreasing. If your self is very weak, you need a ginormous temptation for it to overwhelm the spirit on the other side, right? If you imagine it's always in balance. If the self is very low and the spirit is very high, for the self to take over, the temptation has to be that high as well. But if the self is extremely high and the spirit is extremely low, a little bit of temptation, yeah, he's in control. He's going to go for it. Right? This is why you realize as you progress, the temptations can get higher, but you're less tempted by them. This is the flip side, right? When I was beginning, I would be extremely tempted by a thought, by an inner desire, by a demon screaming something at me or giving me a desire. But the temptation was arguably extremely small. There was nothing there to gain, like a few seconds of pleasure, and I look at some videos or pictures. And now I may be tempted with a woman who would let me do something to her, who would let me do something my twisted self really would want to do. And it's arguably a much greater temptation, but it reaches me less. Less arrives, it has less impact on me. That is because the self is decreasing. And that's how you or I or anybody gets to stay on the path. Until eventually, once again, the perfect example, Christ. He was tempted with everything, but he himself was never tempted. Right? It sounds like an oxymoron. He was tempted, but he was never tempted. He felt the temptation. It's like, yeah, the temptation is there, but I'm not tempted. These are very two distinct things. And why am I saying that? Because you have the two sides as well. You will always be tempted. But the question is, are you tempted? Do you wanna cash in? Where is your mind truly at? And this is the most important thing. And it is extremely boring. It's not cool. You're not gonna become more. You're gonna realize it is just potential. And it's teaching you to stay humble. And to the degree you stay humble, you become as child. And to the degree you become as child, you enter the kingdom of heaven. And to the degree you enter the kingdom of heaven, the women are not going to be sexually attracted to you anymore because you're not cool anymore. You're not this and that. No, you're nothing. But at least you get to keep going. At least you're internally, you're happy, you're at peace. Your conscience is clear, right? It is much better once you're there, once you realize it. right? This is obviously a realization a lot of people don't have because they're in cycles. They're in the yo-yo. Oh, this time we go far. This time we go a little. And next time I'm going to be happy. Next time I'm going to be happy. Next time I'm going to be one more cigarette, one more drug, one more time of sleeping with a woman, one more procrastinate. Like it never ends because it's a cycle. It's a chain. It's a prison cell. So the retention becomes a catalyst, but you got to choose what you do with it. Do you escape the cell or do you want to enjoy the pleasures of the prison? And this is the main thing that even the 99% of people who practice retention, at least from what I can see online, are not getting. It's not cool, it's not fun, you're not becoming more spiritual or more special or more magnetic, or you're retaining all this energy. Like, let go of all of that. It's all nonsense. It's all nonsense. This whole idea that you're becoming superhuman or you contain so much energy and women can't resist you. I used to believe that stuff in the beginning as well, until I actually started to practice it and not constantly fall and shift up and down and become prideful and then be humiliated and prideful and humiliated. This is the cycle. This is the yo-yo, right? When you break through, you got to let go of all of that. And then all these benefits start to vanish. They start to disappear. Because what you thought were benefits were just temptations, or just you cashing in. You gotta let go of the cashing in. You gotta let go of the benefits, because this notion you're becoming more, you're becoming this and that. No, you're just aligning. But the moment you cash in, you lose the alignment, because most men are not aligned. They're today we're a very twisted people. Our hearts are very corrupt, and men have become very weak. They're slaves to addiction. They're slaves to systems. They're slaves to rulers. They're slaves to demons. They're slaves to dopamine. They're slaves to pleasure. And we're all really arrogant and prideful. And that is because we have no power. Because the very little power we have, we immediately need to cash in. Pride is cashing in immediately. Humility is the long game. Humility is the long run. That's why pursuing the path of the long run is the path that leads you to heaven. Humility is the opposite of pride. It is long-lasting, it is enduring, it is painful. Pride is right now. If I'm already in chains, if I already feel like garbage, if I'm already depressed and in addictions and enslaved and in the prison cell, the little bit of power I get, immediately pride. That's why every young man today wants to play a role and pretend to be prideful, to impress the women and to impress one another and measure their pride and their ego. It's like cock measuring to impress on females. It's like chimpanzee behavior, right? Because why? And I'm not saying this as a derogatory statement. Why is it chimpanzee behavior? Because it is biological impulses that rule your life down to the fullest, even though you're much more than that. And us thinking, oh, we're super spiritual when we go on streaks, it's the same thing. You gotta let go of it. All that I'm preaching ever in my videos is humility. You gotta let go of it. And then you'll truly practice it. And then when you truly practice it, trust me, you'll get to a point where you're okay with not being the biggest guy in the room. You're okay with not being the most handsome or the smartest or the most attractive. You're okay if women treat you weird or they don't give you any attention simply because you choose to be yourself and be honest and humble with them and not play a role to impress them. You're going to be okay with that because you have an inner peace that surpasses that. And this is what the kingdom of heaven is. This is what it will also be like after this life if you pursue that path. Everything else, it doesn't matter. And this is what most people get wrong. Because it is not about semen retention. It is about flesh versus spirit. This is spiritual war. And we see that the witches, they practice retention. They practice celibacy. They fast. They do most things that the average people who claim to follow God or follow the truth, whatever that means, claim. They do what not even those do. And so just because you do them, do not be deceived that you're anything more or anything better. Remain as nothing. And in that way, you will receive. But even then, if your thought is, I want to remain nothing so that I can then receive, you're doing the same thing as I'm going to resist this temptation so I can receive the greater temptation. You're still under self-delusion. You got to let go of the self. And what it comes down to is you got to be okay with practicing celibacy or retention and not receiving any female attraction. not becoming more magnetic, still being socially awkward, still sleeping the same amount of time, still making the same mistakes and errors. You gotta be okay with that, simply because you realize it is the better way of living. You gotta distance the fruits from what you're doing. You gotta fundamentally be okay with following God, even if it means you will be beheaded for it and killed for it. Lose your life, lose your pleasures, lose your social status, lose your health, lose your beauty. You gotta give that all up. And for as long as you're clinging to any of these things, you haven't gotten something. That's the main point that people don't get, because it's not appealing. It's not appealing. Because we're already in a subcategory or in a subset of the majority of people, but within that subset you have another subset, right? It's like an onion, go down into the layers until in the end, very, very few people. And these few people, they're on the longest streaks, but they're not sexually attractive. Women are not staring them down. They're not walking around like they are something. They're probably not even rich. They're probably not even handsome. They have none of these things. But you know what they have? They have peace. They have the kingdom of heaven that they're experiencing. Because once you realize that is what is the true gift, all the yo-yo, all the prison, nothing of it interests you. The world becomes boring. Once you recognize the principle, the level of temptation doesn't matter. And how can you recognize the principle? With spirit, with humility, with letting go. Let go. That's also how you overcome temptation. Because the same one who wants all the things that come from semen retention is the same self or one that is going to make you fall. Because he, that person in you, or she, whatever you want to call it, the flesh, it wants nothing else but to cash in and to do things for the self. And he is also the one that experiences the benefits. You got to let go of these benefits. Because you got to remove yourself from the benefits and walk into heaven. It sounds counterintuitive, but that's because it is. It is twisted. The first will be last, the last will be first, the least is greatest, the greatest is the least. Those who are like children will enter the kingdom of heaven. What do you really want? You gotta let go. You gotta let go. You're not attractive anymore, you're not cool anymore, you're none of these things. But you're gonna have a clear conscience and you're gonna have peace. And the real people are gonna respond to you. They're gonna recognize it. Most people are going to cringe at you. Genuinely. Imagine you were who you truly are outside, when everybody is putting up that mask and playing that role. That's strength. And Christ had that. Christ had that. But he had no social status, he had no beauty, he had no women, he had no female attraction. That's all the self. The same self that's going to make you fall. You got to rid yourself of the self. How? Humility. And again, that's a path. But I'm talking about this so you can have the play at the back of your mind and realize what principle I'm hinting to. Right? Internalize it and find it within yourself. Learn it within yourself. Be taught by the Spirit yourself. And you're going to realize in how many ways your thinking is still of the world or of the prison cell or with the yo-yo dynamic. And whenever you notice it, let go of it. Let go of it. Renew yourself. Become humble again. Fast, pray, read your Bible, whatever it is you got to do. And that's how you'll get to keep going. Because it's not you who does it. It's God working through you who does it. God works through his children, not through his men. He works through his children. The children stay on retention. The men cash in. Because they're the men of the world. We're just humble little children. That's the main thing. You shouldn't want to amplify yourself or your worldly presence. You should want to escape it. And despite your power, despite the potential you're receiving, it shouldn't overwhelm you. And this teaches you humility. Humility is taught in power, not in weakness. Because humility is choosing weakness despite strength. And this is what makes it even harder. Because the people will not realize you have even more strength than them. They will look at you because they're appearance-based, right? The kingdom of Satan, the world, it is all running on appearance. If you appear weak, they think you're weak. That's why they don't want to see that Christ is God. Because God would never humble himself. God is this and that. No. You don't understand. You haven't gotten something. Everything is inverted. God is even more humble than you. God is more childish than you are. He's more childlike because he's so unbelievably beautiful. He's so beautiful, most people don't even want to accept it. Because they're all about, I'm a man of God, or I'm a man of the world, or I'm a man. Become a child. That's how you'll be used. That's how you'll find peace. Everything else is the self, the ego. It's all gonna vanish. It's all gonna burn. Aren't we all waiting for that moment when the curse is finally taken away from us and we can be the children we really are? Can't you see how that would be the heaven that we truly want? And so, a lot of the times, what makes it even harder is that the world will respond to you as if you're weak because you appear weak. You choose to appear weak. And then it's like, but I am not actually. No. Be okay with it. Let go. Be okay with it. You're not cool. You're not handsome. You're not pretty. Women aren't attracted to you. You're not rich. You're nothing. Accept it. Because I'm not just saying it. It's true. It's true. But the truth will set you free. Accept it. It's okay. And it will appear weak. Cool people are gonna would look at this or hear this and it's be like, yeah, but you're kind of weak and this. They haven't understood something. They haven't understood something, and that's okay. And they're gonna think you're weak for it. They're gonna think you're enslaved because you follow these teachings or these ways, while they fail to realize that they're in even bigger chains. And look at a child. A child is extremely confident, actually, but extremely humble, extremely small in that sense. They will smile at every person or wave and brighten everybody's day when actually that's what we all want to do. We all want to look at the people. We all want to look at the people in the eyes. And the moment we start to smile, we immediately look away because it's like embarrassing. It's like this and that. We're still that. It's just for most people, the self has overwritten the core part so much they don't even recognize they're the exact same thing. The child has the confidence to do what all of us would actually be doing if we were normal, because there's no pride there. The child will sing, the child will hum, the child will grab the bar in the public transport because it's cool, because it's fun. But you're an adult now. Oh, you can't do these things anymore. You need to act like an adult. What is it? Pride. And people are going to think you're fucking weird if you do it. Because they're weird. And you're alone. That's why, again, the same principle. The less people there are, the more enemies you will have. The more people will cringe at you and think you're weird and think you're weak and say all types of things about you. When in reality, you want nothing but to help them. Just as Christ. And it doesn't matter where you're at. The more you're aligned with the kingdom, the better it is for you. Internally, you'll have a better life. It's the same, you can't be fooled by appearance. When people are in public, they all put up their appearances. When you're on social media, everybody puts up their appearance. Why? Because when they're alone at home, it sucks. It's not good. They're enslaved. They constantly need to stimulate themselves. They never listen to the conscience, and it beats them up because they keep doing what is wrong, never figuring out what they're doing is wrong because they're in chains. They can't see. So again, I've ventured pretty far by now, but that's the core principle. That's what people don't get. And yeah, that's the truth. But it's not appealing. You don't want to hear this. It's humbling. It's boring. But it's peaceful.